Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in as always. So, we're going to take a look at the much anticipated Zero Tolerance 0606 carbon fiber. This is a collaboration with both RJ Martin as well as Matthew or Matt Martin. So, really cool collaborative piece. It was announced, I believe, maybe somewhere around Blade Show 2015 and scheduled for a 2016 delivery. So, here we are at the end of 2016 and the knife has just basically landed at everyone's doorstep. So, anyways, we're going to go through the specs, overall impressions, and get into some of the details on this really cool collaborative piece. So, let me show you quickly what it ships with. We have the limited edition ZT box. Comes with a certificate of authenticity, of course, and then, I don't know, warranty information, I'm sure, down there. Let's move that out of the way and take a look at this beautiful large knife. So again, mentioned this was a collaborative piece. R.J. Martin is certainly well known for his custom knives. Probably the most notable is the iconic Q36 model. And then Matthew Martin or Matt Martin has been essentially building a reputation as an excellent pen maker in the last couple of years, custom pens. So as far as the specs go on this bad boy, looking at a blade length of 4 inches, handle length of about 4.9 inches, giving us an overall of about 8.9 inches. It does weigh in at 6.5 ounces on the stated specs as well as my scale. Blade steel is CTS XHP, obviously titanium handles. The most notable feature is the pivotless pivot, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. And let's see, the handle thickness is 0.62 inches. So in terms of a size comparison, I'm going to break out the Kershaw CQC7K as always. So let's take a look at these side by side. Obviously a significantly larger knife here with the 0606 CF. Carbon fiber backspacer, carbon fiber inlay. We'll get into it in a second here. Just want to give you guys kind of an idea of the overall impression. So I was able to acquire quite a bit of details about this knife, so I'm going to share those with you. This is going to be a little bit longer video. But the concept for this knife essentially centers around the pivot here, which is certainly a notable and interesting feature basically out there today. So the knife centered around the pivotless pivot. ZT decided to do a special run kind of based on that with RJ. And so, they collaborated with him, and the concept came up to have Matthew Martin actually produce all of the pivots for this run, thus giving us the factory custom designation, which means that some of the parts came from outside of ZT, and then that's incorporated into the build. So RJ Martin design, Matthew Martin produced pivot, and ZT built knife. So really cool father and son collaboration with ZT. Now, one of the interesting things that I heard about this project is, again, Matt made all of these in-house. My initial assumption was he simply oversaw production elsewhere, but he actually produced every single one of these that you'll see on the knives, and he had a quality control rejection rate of 0, so everyone was within spec, and integrates into the knives perfectly. So, yeah. Now, while this is an RJ Martin design, it's not based on any specific model. The last custom collaboration in the limited edition line that we saw with RJ Martin was the ZT600, and that was based on his iconic Q36. Now with this knife, you'll see some indications of one of his models in the handle here. You'll notice that the handle kind of follows the design of the Transfusion, which is a custom knife that RJ makes. Double finger choils and so forth. Now on the custom Transfusion, it has it's like a hollow recurve into a flat tip, really complex grind, may not have been in everyone's taste. So what they did is they incorporated features of the Transfusion blade shape, of the Q36, and it created this very attractive, kind of a little bit more traditional clip point style blade with the swedge here. So definitely a beautiful blade, obviously easier to manufacture, and again, bringing it a little more in line with probably the average knife enthusiast kind of taste there. So that was one change. So again, transfusion handle and more of a Q36 adapted style blade. Pretty cool stuff. Now, when we talked about the specs, we did mention that this is a 4-inch blade and just about a 5-inch handle. And one thing to keep in mind is that the pivotless pivot here actually uses quite a bit of real estate, and so you probably won't see this on a smaller knife for some time because it did need to be large enough to facilitate the again, that really cool pivotless pivot there. So because that's kind of what the concept was. That's how it transformed into the knife that it is, incorporating both father, son, and ZT and different design elements. So pretty cool project when you think about kind of the long term, how long it took to build, how long it took Matt to produce every single one of these pivots in house. So really neat. Now another interesting consideration on this knife is the action. As I mentioned, the Q36 by R.J. Martin probably sets the bar for flipping action on custom knives. Now, what R.J. said about it is that, the average knife enthusiast, even in this price range, isn't quite ready for the substantial and really hard flipping action of his custom models. So they actually toned down the action just a bit on this to make it more in line with your average consumer, in this price range. So the action is fantastic. Blade flips out beautifully. Great sound, great feel. Flipper tab is kind of reminiscent of the Q36, a little bit more rounded and so forth. Does have some jimping there on the front to grab it, but really, really good action on it. So, again, that's still not as strong or as deliberate as his custom models. So if you do want to go with his really hard firing action, you'll have to track down one of his customs. But the action on this is fantastic. So pretty neat. Now the blade steels, we get into the details here. And of course, overall impressions, it's a ZT, it's a limited edition ZT. It's fantastic. I mean, there's really nothing to dislike. I think people are going to were a bit hesitant about the colors. As you can see, they are quite a bit more muted here in person than some of the photos showed. So this is more of like a brass than a gold color. The blue is nice and subdued, and it looks quite nice with the carbon fibers. So really cool. If you want to, you could potentially have someone strip the anodizing and re-anodize it. I did talk to a knife modifier, and he said the carbon fiber shouldn't cause a problem if you do want to try to mess with the ano on it. It's definitely up to you. This is adhered to it, it's not screwed to it, so your chance of removing it is not going to happen. So you'll just leave it on there and have to try to work with it in that fashion. Anyways, I'm totally fine with the colors. I think it's really cool. I think this will definitely be a collectible model moving forward within the ZT lineup. So, yeah. All right, blade steel, CTS XHP. It was given a DLC coating initially, and then as you can see, they left the DLC on the flats and came in and did the primary bevel as well as the swedge up top for some really cool contrast. So, now CTS XHP. Aside from making custom knives, R.J. Martin also likes to test and evaluate steel. So XHP is one that he uses on his custom models. It's one he's very familiar with. It's a steel that he likes. And so, of course, since he did have a say in the steel choice, this was a natural choice for this knife. So, yeah. As far as the centering goes, perfect. Lockup is, I don't know, probably 30% or so. Rock solid, as you would expect. There is some jimping on the flipper tab, and then there's also some kind of really interesting diagonal cut jimping here on the spine of the blade, and then a little bit here on the spine of the handle and spine of the blade. So works really well. It's functional without being sharp. and it just lends itself to the really nice ergonomics of this knife. So yeah. All right, again, pivotless pivot. Hopefully that doesn't really need any more description beyond that. It does use the KVT system still, which are stainless ball bearings, and they're incorporated into this really cool pivot. So handles, obviously titanium, some pretty intricate millwork, kind of a feathering effect, and again more of a brass than a gold color essentially. The flats still have quite a bit of machine work as well, and those have been given kind of a, I don't know, a pale blue coloration. Another cool feature is that there's no exposed screws here on the show side, so it's a very, very clean look all the way through. You do have some screws, of course, on the lock side, and then the pocket clip is blind screwed, so it's adhered from the inside, completely solid, works really well in jeans, so yeah. And then some different anodizing done here on the pocket clip to essentially tie it in. Carbon fiber backspacer with some really nice millwork as well. Hopefully you can see all of that here in the light. There we go. Really cool backspacer. And ties in, of course, with the carbon fiber inlay. Balance, right where you would expect it. Ergonomics are outstanding. It has definitely a contoured feel to the knife. Even though we do have kind of essentially different levels of flat planes, but extremely comfortable in the hand. The double finger choil kind of really locks in the hand well, and then you're coming up on a kind of a sloped ramp here. So just with these three fingers, you feel like you have complete control. And then there's the handle length in my extra large hand, so definitely large enough for you. Alright, what else? Stainless steel lock insert, of course, as we've come to know and love on the ZT models. Now let's talk about the price. So this was $500 direct from the list of designated dealers, and whether or not the price is justified is, of course, very subjective. I want to give you guys some things to consider with regard to the price. One, if you do track down a custom, or you're able to get a custom directly from RJ Martin with the pivotless pivot, what does it cost? So there are only two models currently that use the pivotless pivot. One is the Devastator, and the other is the Uberstator. And the Uberstator is kind of an interesting project. He was given a super thick piece of steel. He couldn't grind it down or cut it in half, and so he made some overly, just absurdly large knives with it to try it out. So it's a larger version of the Devastator. Anyways, both of those models do have the pivotless pivot, and they both start around $1,800 direct. So $500 to get the pivotless pivot, only found on two models. There's one consideration, of this knife versus like what's a custom equivalent. Now, another consideration is that RJ Martin's books are currently closed. They have been closed for a long time, and he really has no anticipation of opening them again. He's working through kind of his backlog of orders. Once he finally finishes those up, he does not anticipate opening them again. Simply, he'll make what he wants and then put those up for sale. So, again, your chances of getting exactly what you want with an equivalent kind of build quality or aesthetic or size or anything, pretty much slim to none unless you're already on the books. Now, this is certainly one of the most ambitious builds ZT has done to date in terms of the size, the materials, the machining, the anodizing, the new pivot system, all the carbon fiber. Definitely a more complex build than the last limited edition, which was the ZT600, and also obviously more expensive. Now, the final consideration with regard to price is that these sold out in 25 minutes. Not quite as fast as some of the previous models have sold out, but still less than an hour, everything sold out. Obviously, I felt it was worth the price, as did everyone else who jumped in that time frame and bought it. So, again, I dislike really talking a lot about price because it's so subjective, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit more in terms of the details on kind of what the value proposition is versus his custom, versus how quickly they sold out. versus the fact you can't get one of his customs direct. So anyways, that should pretty much sum it up. Again, a really cool build from Zero Tolerance. Oh man, I slipped, of course, in the video. Beautifully well done knife. A lot of cool features. Hopefully the kind of an up close look, the color here has turned a lot of you guys from the disliking to liking it now that it's under relatively daylight function here. So, all right, we'll go ahead and leave it there. Thanks so much for watching, guys. There's still one more limited edition that was slated for 2016. That's the 999. We will see if it comes to market before the end of the year, or if it's pushed to 2017 instead. So, comments or questions, let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you'd be so kind, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.